For this week's Bible study, we'll be in Colossians 2, 1 through 5. Paul writes, "For I want you to know how great a struggle I have for you and for those at Laodicea and for all who have not seen me face to face, that their hearts may be encouraged, being knit together in love, to reach all the riches of full assurance of understanding and the knowledge of God's mystery, which is Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. I say this in order that no one may delude you with plausible arguments. For though I am absent in body, yet I am with you in spirit, rejoicing to see your good order and the firmness of your faith in Christ." This passage clearly contains the most personal part of Paul's letter up to this point. Paul begins in verse 1 with, "For I want you to know how great a struggle that I have for you and for those at Laodicea and for all who have not seen me face to face." When Paul talks about the struggle that he has for the Colossians and their sister church Laodicea, he's referring to an emotional or perhaps a spiritual struggle that he has for them, which shows that Paul is emotionally invested in this church in which he has not actually met them. We talked about that already in chapter 1, and of course he mentions again that he's not seen them face to face. You might remember that Epaphras is the connection or the bridge between the Colossians and Paul. This is not a church that Paul started, but one that he is writing a letter to encourage them and to warn them against false teaching. His struggle has been that their hearts may be encouraged, being knit together in love, to reach all the riches of full assurance of understanding and the knowledge of God's mystery, which is Christ, that he states in verse 2 here. In the beginning of verse 2, we see Paul's purpose, which is that their hearts may be encouraged. How is that accomplished? Well, through loving each other in community, which is being knit together in love. Kent Hughes points out that there's an intermediate goal stated next: to reach all the riches of full assurance of understanding and the knowledge of God's mystery, which is Christ. So Christ here is the knowledge of God's mystery. If you remember, mystery refers to what was hidden from those in the Old Testament of what God would accomplish through Christ. So here he refers to Christ as the knowledge of God's mystery. And then you've got a parenthetical citation about Christ here in verse 3, "in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge." In verse 4, we have Paul's ultimate goal stated: "I say this in order that no one may delude you with plausible arguments." Another way to understand what Paul means by plausible arguments are arguments that are fine sounding. So here we have an implicit reference to the false teachers that I mentioned that Paul is responding to. He doesn't want anyone to delude them with such arguments. So Paul is stating his theological perspective here. And in verse 5, we're going to get Paul's personal perspective. "For though I am absent in body, yet I am with you in spirit, rejoicing to see your good order and firmness of your faith in Christ." He also uses this phrase, "I am with you in spirit," in 1 Corinthians 5. But there he's telling the Corinthians that he's with them in spirit as they judge an immoral brother in the church. Here it's a much more positive use of the term, that although he is not presently with them, he is with them in spirit. And when he says, "I'm with you in spirit, rejoicing to see your good order and the firmness of your faith in Christ," it's a very positive way to say, hey, I know you're going to do the right thing here, and I know your faith in Christ is firm. We'll get more into what these false teachers are bringing to the Colossians later on in the letter. May we all have firmness in our faith in Christ. All right, that was a short one, but we'll continue on next time. Thanks.